we were talking about strategies and how to elevate this wonderful site, which we now identified as Summit Tunnel. And there are some issues that people have talked about already, one of which is that it's pretty vast. As Phil Sexton noted, it's miles, of activity along the Transcontinental Railroad route. Some of the railroad is active, and some of it has no rails on it, which makes it a little more open to being used for pedestrians and bikers and recreational, because there's no chance of getting run over by a railroad. I was also on the tour, and Phil Sexton noted to us the train has right of way. So if you, let's say, were taking a photograph and you're on your mountain bike, if an accident happened, that would be really unfortunate, but they cannot stop a train. Particularly if the overcut is a curve, they can't see you. So we're really focused on the areas probably that are not an active rail. I think we might even have someone from the railroad joining us. Is he here today? We haven't seen him yet, but we're hoping that he may be with us. So there are many attributes of the site that we've already identified. And later on in this session in the afternoon, I'm going to stand up again, and we're going to focus on, based upon the whole discussion, what you all are thinking, what would your preference be in terms of, we should do this as a site, or we think that should be as a site. But this session is to talk about strategies. So I'm going to talk about one experience that I had working in the National Register of Historic Places. We have Barbara Wyatt from the National Park Service next to me, and she's going to kind of discuss this or present it with me, because she's also going to talk about national monuments. She is the authority on this. I'm just giving you kind of maybe the person like yourselves who may be new to the process, how this works. So I'm gonna just focus on the National Register property that was posted in August 2018 in Boston. I'm from Boston's Chinatown. Me and my family is from Chinatown, and Chinese have been there for 140 years. I brought the advisory council there for East Coast listening session, and they said, no, we're having it at Angel Island in San Francisco. I said, well, there's real deep Chinese history. It's just that in Boston, you're not going to find anyone who raises their hand necessarily, because they're really quiet about it, and they kind of don't want to get involved. And they're thinking, all over the country, we have small towns in America who are trying to get National Register properties listed. They've been trying for decades, they don't qualify. And here you have an entirely historical community that doesn't seem to care. So it's not that the Asians didn't seem to care. I think that there was, the federal highway came in and kind of drove over half of Chinatown. There's a lot of animosity, actually. And so people are like, we don't want to get involved in those programs. So bringing the community back into the discussion about that you are so historical, and wouldn't you consider it your work to be part of the American story? No one raised their hand. They were like, so what are you talking about? What is this about? So I think that kind of a scenario is not unlike the association many Asian Americans have with their own history, particularly like the railroad, because after the railroad workers were disbanded, some faced extreme discrimination, and having worked as a laborer on a railroad was not so cool as like the other guy whose ancestor went to school and was a scholar or became rich. And so some of this history just went by the wayside, and now we're trying to uncover it, and we're trying, a lot of these people are not literate. They're not, some of the records, they don't stand for we cover a lot of the railroad worker history. So just saying, this is sort of where we're at, and a lot of people now are thinking, hey, we'd like to get involved. How do we get involved? So I'm just going to quickly talk about the National Register. I think Barbara, you can talk about the landmark program at the question and answer period. And so what we did in Boston is we actually received a $20,000 underrepresented grant from the National Park Service. It went to the Massachusetts SHPO, the State Historic Preservation Officer, they utilized the grant to hire a consultant to create the context study, which is the official history of Chinese immigration to Boston. And this was never written officially. They had the Historical Society that had a lot of writings, but nothing that was kind of the official U.S. version of the history. When the property gets put on the National Register, that version of the history actually gets put in the Library of Congress. So when you're thinking about, 140 years of people who just kind of live there, and all of a sudden you kind of, not only you're significant, but your history is actually put officially in the Library of Congress. That seemed to be the hook that people were very interested in. And subsequently, there was a property, a building, it was given to the community as a community center. It was the first horseman school that had divided classrooms. So the building itself had some significance. And mind you, I am speaking about a building versus a whole landscape. But the outcome was that after being placed on the register, this building and Chinatown itself all of a sudden qualified for all these preservation grants. There's a new tax in City of Boston for open space, historic preservation, and affordable housing. And all of a sudden they qualified. And so this is not a promise, but we said that people already qualified for grants. And at this point, they've now received about $480 million worth of grants for about a year and a half, which before they could not even apply for because they did not have a National Register site. So that, it's not just about money, but I think the community is starting to realize, wait a minute, if all the outsiders are paying attention to this space and that our history, maybe we should pay more attention to it as well. So I'm going to pass the mic on. I think the time ends up here. And just to kind of get you a little bit of excited that the National Register is not intended to be a barrier. It actually can be a doorway into elevating histories for people who aren't yet